we have an interesting assignment tonight.
We sure do, Jim, and we're very pleased to be able to share this time and to share the fellowship, and as you've been sharing your heritage, each one of these folks in the audience have that same kind of story, with that same kind of emotion to share tonight, and a few of them will be doing that.
You had a Swedish festival, I don't know how many years ago. Remember the big Swedish weekend you had? Many years ago. I was doing a show from Herbert Shoe, downtown Jamestown. We were on location to talk about the Swedish bargains for the Swedish festival. Imagine that hired a Sicilian boy to do the Swedish bargains. I don't understand it. But anyway, that morning, my show started at 8:15 in the morning at that time. And I was setting up in the Herbert Shoe to do the broadcast, and who walks in? First one was Fred Johanssen, and he came very specially to award me a Swedish tie, blue and yellow. He wanted me to wear it. He said, "You cannot continue this broadcast until you put on this tie." Remember that, Fred?
No, I don't.
Go sit with Durand. That big buildup.
It must have been an exquisite moment for you to have recalled it after all these years.
Couldn't have meant a hell of a lot to you, though, Fred. True story. He brought a tie. He said, "You've got to wear this tie because you can't do this kind of a broadcast without feeling like a Swede."
He didn't know there was a piece of rope, did he?
Okay, Russ,
I heard somebody say Jim wears a tie tonight.
I was looking for it. Honestly, I did desperately search the house. This was many years ago, so there was a blue and yellow tie I had, but it wasn't the real thing, and I didn't want to wear a fake. I didn't want to wear fake pearls like Jackie Kennedy did. I didn't want to do that. Russ, you have a question?
Yes, Fred, you certainly made a great impact on this community and its activities and the fabric of our community here in Jamestown, Chautauqua County. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is based in your heritage and the Swedish heritage that you have. Could you just share with us some of those early lessons and some of those early experiences you had?
Yes, I'd be pleased to. My mother and father came to Jamestown as young Salvation Army officers, and we lived down on 24 Harrison Street in the Italian neighborhood, where I learned a lot of fine expressions like "come sta?"
Bene, molto bene.
"Molto bene," "Venica," and a lot of nice, pleasant. As a matter of fact, I had if I may digress a moment, yesterday I was visiting with an Italian neighbor, Mike Callan. You know Mike? And we were next door neighbors on Harrison Street. And we had a fine relationship growing up as boys do. And I was sometimes a little mischievous, and his father, Mr. Callan, as we all called me, he says, "Venica." That means come over here. I had been mischievous, and in true Italian fashion, he gave me a cuff in the back of the head. He says, "Now go home and tell your papa what I did." I said, "No, if I do, I'll get another one." These days, they sue the neighbor. So I remember that. It was fondness. And of course, the Salvation Army, as you know, has had a tremendous impact on this community from a spiritual standpoint and a serving standpoint. They continue with their efforts of hand to man and heart to God, and I'm very proud of my parents' contribution to that. Now, very shortly, they're going to be celebrating, I think it's 60 years of a Sunday morning Swedish service on radio. And their signature tune is, oh dear, it escaped me for the moment. När morgonen kommer. Now all the Swedes understand. My parents were part of that initiation, and it continues today. And I'm very, very proud of that. And of course, we were exposed to Luthes, Bill, Rootmoot, and all those exquisite things that we partook at the table tonight. And it's nice that we continue with these precious things, precious in our memory. And I'm proud to be a part of the Swedish community.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have any Gardoon sandwiches.
Well, Mrs. Rappa lives but on the other side of it, she supplied us with cartoons. Yeah.
You say it better than I do, Fred. No, in all seriousness, Fred, to really put across the message of what this evening's all about, what about a fellowship evening like this? Did you welcome the idea that something like this should be part of the 150-year celebration?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to, not coincidentally, but the last celebration in November, when the Scandinavian community will welcome all of the other, excuse the expression, ethnic groups to participate with us in the celebration of our all coming together in a local community, being proud one another of each other's accomplishments and contributions.
And I'm wondering how many of you have then continued with the American Scandinavian Foundation, which became the American Scandinavian Heritage Foundation in 1983. And since then, we've had many activities, many of them annual language, and I believe at one time it was coupled with some cooking lessons by a certain person. And in addition, there have been so many other civic activities that this person has taken part and arranged for. For instance, I've seen many of you at the Chautauqua Mall for that annual Christmas sing. And I think I remember seeing you many at the awarding of the Polar Star Medal in 1994. Therefore, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to present the award.
And let the procedure of the Oscar Award tonight, recipients always register their thanks to the many whom they feel have helped to bring them to that moment of recognition. This evening, one would choose to follow that same format. All present here this evening would agree that one never attains an honor totally on his own merit. There have been those who have extended the needed encouragement, their willing cooperation, with their accents of dedication and love. And for me, most of those wonderful people are no longer fellow sojourners. However, one is grateful for their presence in one's life, and also grateful to those in the present who have caught their zeal to carry on. One would be remiss if one did not remember our forefathers, men and women who chose to endure indescribable hardships, but who possessed indisputable tenacity, integrity, fortitude, and a deeply embedded desire to find the opportunity which would provide a capacity to become a purposeful person in a new land, and also a belief that their children would experience an unparalleled opportunity to become, which could not be possible in their homeland. Wilhelm Moberg's novel, The Emigrants, provides a gallery of authentic profiles which admirably defines the strength and stamina of the emigrants. Truly, we, believed that hard work was what a man and woman did in order to matter. They knew there could be no right who made life possible for everyone else. Respective efforts to preserve facets of our heritage. The honors bestowed on all of us, I believe, dispels, in this instance, the scriptural declaration that a prophet is without honor in his own country. And at this point, I wish to share with you an incident involving recipient Donna Johnson. In the beginning of my tenure at Faulkner Central School, I was a chaperone at a school dance. I was not thrilled at this assignment. Time hung very heavily, and the clock couldn't move fast enough for me. Suddenly, I heard the strains of a schottische, and an attractive young blonde maiden was approaching me. She smiled and she said, "Mr. Heglund, would you like to dance a schottische?" I never could figure out how she knew of my fondness for the music of the Gammeldans, but dance we did. I can assure you the evening was no longer boring. To those who have made this evening possible, I register at Vignettes. And in closing, I concur with César Pavese, a French writer, who observed, "We remember moments, not days. This moment I shall remember. This moment I shall cherish." I thank you.
The afternoon, Sven, he looked at this and he realized that they're putting these things up on the north side of the room. And he says to Ole, "You know, when you put these things up here, you got to put them on the south side of the roof so that they're looking at the sun all day, otherwise they ain't going to work." And Ole says, "Yeah," he says, "you know, I read that in the instructions, but," he said, "you know, I heard just the other day on WJTM that Governor Pataki say he's going to turn this state around." And he says, "Now, Lena, what was that for?" And she says, "You know, I was cleaning out the pockets in your shirts to do the wash. And I find this note in your pocket there that says Olga on it." He says, "Lena, you don't worry about that. That's just a horse that I bet on at the racetrack last week." And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have known and trusted you more." Well, the next day when he come home from work, so soon as he opened the door, she knocked him on the noggin with the rolling pin. And he says, "Now, Lena, what was that for?" She says, "Ole, your horse called today." He had family skunks living underneath the porch. He talked to his brother-in-law, Sven, one day, and Sven says, "Well, you know, all you got to do to get rid of those skunks is throw a little loot to his skunk. And that'll drive them right out of there." "Yeah, I'm going to try that, Ole." So a couple of weeks later, Ole runs into Sven and Sven says, "Ole, did you try that there with the luteist like I told you?" "Yeah, I did that," Ole says. "Did it work? Did you get rid of the skunks?" Ole says, "Yeah, I got rid of the skunks, but now I got a family of Norwegians living on there."
I think it's very appropriate that this affair was held here at Marvin House because it reminds me of so many beautiful events that have taken place here. Jim already made mention of the fact when the University of Minnesota president was here, and Doug also was also on the program. I do consider that one of the highlights in my 32 years of programming. And also, here in this room, there were two 80th birthday celebrations. One was honoring Paul Swan on his 80th, and the other one was 8 years ago when I honored my sister on her 80th birthday. Well, when you get to be 80 years old, I think it's time for doing some inventory, and you realize that we're here not only by the grace of God, but because of the skills of the medical profession before this event today. I'm not sure what, yes, I am sure now, but I didn't know at the time I was writing this, so I am very grateful to all of them. And I did make a remark to Marshall the other day. I said, "You know, I don't know anything that's going on next Saturday afternoon, except I know I'm supposed to be there from 2 to 5. He says, "Well, that's it." He says, "You're not supposed to know anything about it." So anyhow, I'll say to all of you, tusen tack. To those of you who don't know Swedish, that means 1,000 thanks. And I do think, since this is Make a Difference Day, that it would be appropriate to say that let's all continue making a difference with each other and to other people as well. And there's a quote that I found from Norman Vincent Peale this morning that I think is very appropriate to end with. Be grateful for the privilege of living, and your life will grow increasingly bright. I think there's a beautiful thought for all of us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.